For the first time ever, a government building in Kyiv was hit by a Russian aerial attack overnight. This, as President Trump said moments ago, that he's ready to move to the second phase of sanctions against Russia. The Ukrainian military says more than 800 Russian drones were deployed against cities across the country. At least 4 people, including an infant, were killed. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling the attacks vile. And President Trump's Ukraine envoy says Russia appears to be now escalating the war. I want to bring in CNN Global Affairs analyst Kim Dozier. Kim, great to see you.
And if you are hip to everything and you study so yourself approved and you up on game concerning the Bible, you understand that all this is going to escalate. There's not going to be some big giant peace treaty bill that gets passed. All roads lead to all roads lead to World War III, and there is nothing anybody can do to prevent World War III to happen. I'm glad that he's hitting government buildings. He's escalating things, making things ramp up and go forward. I absolutely love it. You have the Ukraine war that's going on. You have the issues and conflicts with Hamas, Israel, when they assigned a peace treaty in January, and that didn't last that long. The ultimate peace treaty is all these nations being subdued and the Lamb taking these his title back, being lords over all these nations. Let's keep it.
I mean, the building that houses the Ukrainian prime minister's office was also struck in this assault. What do you read in this kind of targeting?
It is hard to know whether Russia has tried to hit these buildings before, but was not able to make it through the anti-missile and anti-aircraft protection around it, or if this was intentional. Previously, they've hit other parts of the city, but this attack was 800 drones and missiles. Some of the drones were what's called dummy drones. They don't have a warhead, but they're launched to confuse the anti-aircraft systems on the ground so that many of them can then get through. Whether it was intentional or not, they did hit one of the buildings in the governing complex over Kyiv. And they also, once again, hit residential buildings, killing civilians. And these were residential buildings, at least one of them, according to reporters on the ground, it was hit by a drone. Drones are guided. Drones have some sort of capability to see where they're going. So it's hard to see this as anything but Vladimir Putin saying, I will do what I want for as long as I want, no matter what the White House says, because I am not ready to stop making war yet.
I love the idea of Trump, that cruel lord, talking about ramping it up against Putin. Here, interesting. Uh, you just had Qatar was bombed. You had Yemen was just I think the prime minister of Yemen got struck. So you actually now you going for Zelensky. You hitting buildings where he is occupied at. Now, if you understand biblical prophecy, again, it'll take you to Ezekiel. Ezekiel 38 and verse 4. I'll start with verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith Yahweh God, Behold, I am against thee, O God, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So, a great company. Who is this talking about? Gog and Magog. That's your Russians. It's very similar to Joel chapter 2, verse, I think that's verse 20, where they move far from thee, the northern army, drive them to a land barren and desolate. Well, Russia is going to have hooks put into thy jaw. When you got a horse and you bridle him and you put hooks into his jaw, you doing that to be able to control him. And that's what the Most High is signifying. And he's going to control them and bring them back to their old ways, putting hooks back into their jaws. Because guess who Gog and Magog has a beef with? They have a beef with the rats over there in our land, and they have a beef with America. They've had a long-standing beef with America, and there is, no peace talks that's going to bring about any significant change. The peace talks that they brought up, and when they had the Alaska summit, as you can see, that didn't amount to nothing. So the Most High, he's putting hooks into these jaws and leading them back into this war.
And this, as President Trump is, giving Putin now 2 weeks to make a peace deal with Ukraine. I mean, the deadline was last Thursday. No deal happened. But Trump said moments ago that he is ready to move to the second phase of sanctions against Russia. And, I mean, they haven't worked so far. Is this what it's going to take to get Russia to the negotiating table?
Well, the last set of sanctions that Trump struck was against India, giving India an extra 25% tariffs for a total of 50% tariffs against their goods so that India would stop buying Russian crude. The thing is, a lot of that Russian crude that India buys, it sells on to Europe as finished products. And these tariffs didn't in any way affect China, which buys far more Russian crude than India does. Plus, also, India was so incensed over the tariffs that they have raised their orders for the fall by 10 to 20% for more crude. So that really hasn't done much to damage the Russian war machine. It is hard to know if Trump is ready to actually hit some of the areas like the oligarchs, something that would hit closer to the Russian centers of power, like he did in his first term. He's been advised to do that. He's been given those tools by his advisors, like General Keith Kellogg, who does fully understand what Moscow is about. The question is that we're all waiting and watching to see, will he finally lose patience with Putin and pull the trigger on something that will actually be painful to Putin himself?
Yeah, it was only a couple of weeks ago. There was the Alaska summit. The president left that very hopeful. But now Zelensky is actually criticizing that event. Listen to what he had to say.
I think that President Trump gave Putin what he wanted. He wanted very much to meet with President Trump, with the President of the United States. And I think that Putin got it, and it's a pity.
And how do you suppose those comments are going to be interpreted? Because Zelensky has tried to be really complimentary of this White House, especially after the debacle of that, Oval Office meeting earlier in the year. But now that he is, I guess, bold enough to say that, be critical, and that Putin has gained something from that summit, how will that be met at the White House?
You can almost see Zelensky thinking out loud, like, should I say this? And then he finally says the emperor has no clothes on type statement. Everyone has since understood, watching what Putin has done since the summit, that he has squandered Trump's good wishes and goodwill and used that photo op to the maximum. But the question is Trump also equally upset with what Putin has done in the aftermath? It hasn't looked like it, but Trump can he can run out of patience, and it happens suddenly. So if he feels in any way humiliated by what Putin is doing, then we're going to see a change in policy. What you have seen Putin also do is make a lot of different statements, like his most recent one at an economic summit was that if there are foreign troops inside Ukraine, this would be ostensibly after some sort of peace deal, and these are the reassurance forces promised by Europe to Ukraine. This is a deal still being worked out. Putin has said that those would be valid targets. This is not the kind of message you send if you're going to allow Ukraine, as Putin has previously said, to continue to exist as an independent nation that needs its own protection.
Hey man, bottom line is Russia wants that old thing back. They want that land that they feel that belongs to them, and all the resources that come along with it. And they feel also America is encroaching and taking all of the area and land, and prevent America from being the next world power. All right. On that note, hope this lesson has been edifying. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Bashem Akakwadash. Double honor to the elders, GMS Ruel. Peace, salutations, and shalom.